to your point about redeeming generational masculinity, which is a large vision, breaking out of this mindset of just being obedient to a master is a part of that. And enabling men to find their glory and operate in it.
Yeah.
With God, there is always more. More love, more life, more freedom. Welcome to Zoe's Exploring More with Michael Thompson. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "Our Heavenly Father has provided many delightful ends for us along our journey, but He takes great care to see that we do not mistake any of them for home." Join me and the team as we explore the kingdom together, discovering the deep truths and offering encouragement for the journey. There is always more.
Welcome, friends and allies, to the Exploring More podcast. Different week.
Same
shirts. Clothes. This is when Caleb locks us in here.
Yeah.
Says, hey, man, we need to knock out.
Photoshop them or something to different colors.
Yeah, we need to knock out a couple
We could have swapped
podcasts.
shirts. That would have been fun. It'd be like huge on you and
Yeah,
tight on me.
You'd have been Tommy Boy. Only a few guys get that. So we're talking about the glory of your life. We tried to lay a bunch of tracks on the philosophical, theological definition in the last, and I want to get into some of the process of reclaiming the glory of your life. You know, how you really don't pursue that. What you do is pursue something else, which is your healing.
And then you discover your glory along
the way. Yeah. And so I want to read another part of King Me before we take a quick break at the onset. So one of the questions that we want to ask is, what's your glory for? Well, it is for you, but it's very much for others. It's what you bring to the world, and it's what you offer. So here's a little section on King Me. Your glory is what intimately connects you to the Father and Him to you. You are to offer it to others without strings attached, simply because you can. Thus, you fulfill the main purpose of a good king: to love and lead, provide and protect, to help others come to Jesus for their healing and training, and in partnership with God to offer the glory of your life in order to validate and initiate others in the glory of theirs. So there's this a precursor. There's a if you'll do this, then they. If you, then they. If you will offer your glory in this way: loving, kind, strong, initiation, validation, and the beauty of really operating in your glory is you're free to do it, and that's what I said, with no, or maybe you said that, with no strings attached. Yeah, I said that with no strings attached. So I used to offer. I know I did this. I would offer my ear to listen. I would offer my encouragement, my advice, my counsel. But the strings attached thing, I wrote in King Me from experience, and I just didn't realize how much I wanted something back.
Oh, yeah.
And so now it becomes conditional. Now it becomes transactional. And so when your glory is kind of bound up in likes and acceptance and
love
and value, yes, and being loved. Nobody wants to get poked around by people's jabs and accusations and diminishment. So, but if they don't want it or like it, it's not the end of your world.
There's something about you said something in the last episode, being I don't know what it is, kindergarten, 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah.
Early on your glory can be seen in childhood, and then something happens. some kind of wound comes in, the enemy comes in.
Yeah.
It's that example we've talked about where you ask little kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they're all like, all of them put their hands up.
They want to tell you.
And then they cross a certain threshold and nobody wants to share anything.
Yeah.
And so there's something that comes on you in a younger time in your life that just squashes that. And then in order to recover or try to survive, not recover, but if we're trying to survive, it's almost like when we're younger, we're still somehow in touch with the unconditional love of God. We're just loved. We feel loved. Now, this is not diminishing anybody that had terrible things happen to them in childhood, because that does happen. Things get in the way earlier for some folks. But there's that connection that's there, generally speaking, to this unconditional love. And then at some point we realize, love is conditional.
We learn it. We experience
and we're taught it, right?
We experience it.
So then we create a system to arrange for love. And that is not your glory, though it may be very, very close to how God, because you're good at whatever that thing is.
Yeah.
So in your example, you're good at listening, encouraging to people, making them feel included. I see that as part of your glory as your friend. But man, what a win for the enemy if that gets corrupted with you arranging for love through it.
And how selfish if I'm using it.
Yeah.
Which is the win for the enemy. If I'm using it to try to get, and that's where this thing is as powerful as your glory is. There's a fragility to this. It can be. Jesus said the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy.
Right.
That's what they're trying to steal.
Absolutely.
Kill, and destroy.
And they will use you as a partner in its destruction.
Yeah.
And they'll use the systems that you created to survive as a young person as a methodology to keep your glory smothered.
Yeah. Tangled up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So we'll be right back and dive a little further or travel a little more east into the darkness of how do you recover this? What's this look like? So we'll be right back on the Exploring More podcast. Hey, Dayton, Ohio, Greater Cincinnati, Columbus, Covington, Kentucky.
Yeah, home of the Ohio State University.
Hey, Michael Thompson here, hanging out with Josh Overton, and just want to say, number one, thank you to all you men in that area who have been to our encounter weekends, have read and engaged with Heart of a Warrior or King Me. We're so honored and so excited. Because of your engagement, we're coming to you.
Yeah, we're super excited to bring to you the Dangerous for Good Men's Summit on August 2nd and 3rd, a place where you can discover who you are, where you are, and the good that God is up to in your life. We call that orientation. I mean, an oriented man lives with nothing to hide, nothing to prove, nothing to fear. That's pretty awesome.
And that's dangerous for good.
It is.
So this is going to be held at the Athletes in Action World Headquarters.
Come on.
And for those who know a little bit of my backstory, playing basketball for Athletes in Action, this is a little bit of a homecoming for me to step back into the Cincinnati area, Dayton, Xenia, Ohio, to the Athletes in Action headquarters. You'll see the address right below and how to get there. And there's more information coming. So, yeah, Josh, we couldn't be more excited to come to you and want to invite you to invite.
Yeah.
Invite you to invite men for what is going to be, I think, the opportunity to continue transforming a local body of men from multiple churches and multiple backgrounds, ages, elder sages, kings, and warriors, to a central location for this equipping, encouragement, so that you can be deployed back into the greater Cincinnati and Ohio Valley areas to be the kind of men that will impact other men for the kingdom of God.
Yeah.
Coming your way.
Let's go.
See you soon. Welcome back to the Exploring More podcast, talking about the glory of your life, how you bear God's image, what you bring to the world. Here's what Gary Barkalow said in his book. Our glory and calling cannot be released or entered into by way of testing, analysis, goal setting, or determination, and cannot be fully contained and fulfilled by a job or position. It will require all of you, a wholeheartedness, and it's for something more than ourselves.
Yeah. That wholeheartedness thing is so interesting, man. I'm so alert now to because we say it all the time, a part of me, feels this way, and a part of me feels this way.
Yeah.
And it's just to me and a part of the subconscious coming out saying, I'm a heart divided on that area. So why is my heart divided? And I get to go into that. But wholeheartedness is I don't know that it's a prerequisite, but it's something to move towards.
Yeah, becoming
and
more free.
Beyond the trail of as you discover your glory.
I'm gonna kind of point at your story a little bit. So let's take one quality of yours that is godlike, protector. Mm-hmm. God provides, God protects. Psalms are full of that. We're to hide in His shadow. We're to be close, and we're to stay connected to Him. That He won't won't let anything happen that isn't somehow, some way. If it wasn't good, He's going to make it good. Mm-hmm. Is our promise, because bad things happen, and yet He's going to make them good. So protecting. When I think of that, and I think of how early in your story that was important to you. We don't have time to go way into it.
No.
And yet you wanted to go into the military. Mm-hmm. Didn't get to bring that desire to protect things in that particular lane, but you found the lane of a first responder. Mm-hmm. So here's just one aspect, one element, and there's probably, I'm just gonna give it a number. There's probably somewhere between 5 and 8 of these particular Trinity DNA molecules in each of us that we get to bring. Yeah. So there's more about that another time. The Trinity DNA molecule podcast. Well,
it rolls off the tongue.
It just does. And so it was in you, it was on you, and yet describe what it was to have that tangled up. You said you used a word, I think, muted or smothered.
Yeah.
You don't have to go way into the testimony story, but I'm just saying here's a great example of something that you brought to the world, and yet it had some scratches and dents. It had some bruises. Mm-hmm. It even became something that was hurtful. Mm-hmm. To you.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Early on, I decided that was one of my ways to arrange for love, with my dad in particular. Providing and protecting him for him and protecting him. Sometimes from my siblings, sometimes from situations, sometimes from different scenarios. Just, I found out I was good at it. I found out I was really good at paying attention to things and seeing trouble before it actually arrived.
What could go wrong here? And let me do what I can to safeguard against something going wrong.
Yep. And so I think that's a glorious thing in me. and was really perverted by the enemy for me to try to arrange for love in many different ways. If I can be helpful, if I can be your guardian, your protector, if I can watch over you, then you'll love me. To the point that, I scored I got a 94 on my ASVAB test, in high school, 99th percentile. Military, 100%, and then broke my ankle. But so the first responder thing was 100%. By then, in my 20s, this thing was deep-seated, and I didn't even know why. I just had to do it. And
there's a good word for that. It's called, Wendell talks about it, and I remember, compelled.
I was compelled to do it, but it was a perverted. I'm still compelled to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a part of how I operate in the world, just generally speaking, but it's not a way to arrange for love anymore. It's not perverted by the enemy. It's not, I'm not the bouncer at the door. I'm the guy now in the party, saying hello to people and listening to their stories and engaging with them and being relational.
Yeah.
And it can be a part of that.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to separate me. That was the painful part for me.
Yeah.
Was that it separated me and gave me this kind of an air of, I don't want anybody close to me. I don't, want to be known, when on the inside, that's all I wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. There's a complicated math to this,
Mm-hmm.
and then like anything else, one day it's not so complicated.
Yeah.
Because you start to really see
Mm-hmm.
the intricacies of this, and I'm trying to think of an example of that's not really part of my glory protection.
Yeah.
And yet, I don't want people to get hurt.
Of course not.
So part of my glory is kind of survival. Like I want them to survive. I want to give training and guide.
Mm-hmm.
I want to guide people
Mm-hmm.
so that they don't get hurt.
Yeah.
So
let's not even go near the cliff.
It still ends up in the same. We don't want people to get hurt.
Right.
But I'm saying the way it comes through you, and the way it comes through me. You might be the safety belt.
Even though you got your seatbelt on,
safety
put
belt
that arm out there.
on there, and
Mm-hmm.
and that's a good thing. So there's some real intricacies to this that I think is really actually fun, and why it's so great to walk with God, to discover what is it that I bring to the world and makes me come alive.
Yeah.
What am I compelled to do?
Yeah.
Thoreau's quote, which we use all the time. Then go to their, most men live lives of quiet desperation, go to their grave with a song still in them. What's the song?
Mm-hmm.
What's the song? And how do you uniquely sing that song?
Mm-hmm.
So there's, there's just so much more I want to, so here's that C.S. Lewis thing I promised that actually, it's in Gary's book. Gary's quoting C.S. Lewis. So there's some Gary and Lewis in here. So because of the work of Christ in you, you are now a display of God's splendor. That's Gary, his image bearer. You are not simply an object of God's forgiveness and tolerance, which is what most people believe about their life. There's a brilliance, a magnificence to your life. This is what you are to own, the splendor of your life. Not simply what has been taken away, but what has been given to you. C.S. Lewis said, "For God is not merely mending, not simply restoring something to a status quo. Redeemed humanity is to be something more glorious than unfallen humanity." Let me say it again. Lewis is saying redeemed humanity is to be something more glorious than unfallen humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes back to Eldridge's quote. We've read a lot about
Mm-hmm.
original sin, but not enough about original glory.
Yeah, it's not just about salvation.
I think we're so tainted in fallenness. It's difficult to see even what is redeemed humanity. Even what could that even look like? We talk about this in redeeming generational masculinity all the time.
Absolutely.
There's so many examples of what a good man isn't bless the masculine image bearer and bless his journey, but there's so many images of what isn't good.
Yeah.
We don't know
Yeah.
what a good man really might look like. We haven't seen enough of them on the
Right.
landscape. That's another reason to bring a engaged and participation in the recovery of you and getting this stuff off of you and out of you so that your glory can emerge and be offered to a world. That if there would be more men moving around handling their glory, wielding it, offering it, sharing it with kindness and strength, I think it would
Oh, it'd be incredible.
make some incredible impact.
So you just revealed something to me that's connected to glory that's irritated me for a long time.
I revealed it? Good. Let's hear it.
You didn't irritate me.
Okay.
You revealed the irritation. I've often wondered why it irritates me when people say, no, it's not me, it's only God. God gets the glory. To glory be to him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a willing servant. God will use any old burning bush, Wendell.
Yeah.
That irritates me because God did not create automatons. God created us with free will. He gave us the ability to make decisions on our own, to have some autonomy over our own lives and how we walk them out, and make a decision whether or not to follow God. Mm-hmm. If all he wanted was people that were obedient, then he would have just taken away free will. Mm-hmm. But that's not all he wants. He wants us to not only just choose. Let me say that again. Get my words together. He not only wants us to choose him and pursue him and receive the love that he has for us. He wants us to choose to continue to do that and pursue the way that he's made us in his image. I've said it this way before. Our circumstances often, or maybe our family, whatever arranged for the meeting, those things bring us to the foot of the cross. We need the cross, right? We need Jesus. We need salvation. We need rescue. We need redemption and restoration. But Jesus didn't stay on the cross, so neither should we stay at the foot of it.
Yeah.
So what does it look like to move through the cross, through this redeemed heart, this renewing of our hearts and our minds, and become what God created us to be? Not just an obedient slave, right? I've thought about this earlier too. You've mentioned it many, many times. This progression, right? It's potter and clay, vines and branches, and then it's friend. Ultimately,
and lover.
Right.
I mean, it gets pretty intimate.
Right. And so, but we're stuck, many of us, in this. And I would say, to your point about redeeming generational masculinity, which is a large vision, breaking out of this mindset of just being obedient to a master is a part of that. And enabling men to find their glory and operate in it.
And that's the progression. I'm glad you brought it up. I mean, it's a delicate idea. I mean, but again, I'm back to what you said earlier. For some reason, we want to avoid the very validation and initiation that the Father and the Son and the Spirit are trying to give us, that I no longer call you servants, I call you my friends. So there is a progression that
it's necessary.
There's things you need to learn and ways you need to learn, and then I will empower you. Right, we talked about that many times, and it's so important. I'll empower you to live in this glorious way, which is free. It's about living in the freedom. So there's Ephesians 2:10, we are God's masterpiece. Poema is the Greek word, masterpiece, like poem, where we get poem, created in Christ Jesus so that we can do the good things that he prepared for us before the foundation of the world. So even in your core, if you still believe you're a sinner, if you still believe there's nothing good in you, if you still believe that you're unworthy rather than worth dying for, I mean, all of it's almost precursor to getting into this conversation about the glory of your life, what you bring to the world and what the world needs from you, what God intended with his sons and daughters to bring to one another. And this is in the church, we talk about being either spiritual gifts, or you can talk about the different complementary parts that we're to have. And yeah, the enemy loves to get in there and create jealousy and envy, and what you're offering. I can absolutely minimize your journey and just think I want to cut to the front of the line, and that's how I want to be. Why does he get that? Why is he the one who gets to whatever, some privilege that we might think about?
You're seeing guys like C.S. Lewis or Gary Barkalow, other guys that we know and we've quoted on this podcast. You don't know what those men have been through to get where they are,
right?
And you can't. There really is no secret sauce to growth and freedom in this area, other than to just do the work.
Yeah.
There's
the recovery.
Now you can have someone walking with you, like you said, as a guide, and say, "Whoa, I remember when I was at this part of the journey. Don't step on that." And that's very helpful.
That's the beauty of an elder sage, or the wisdom of a king, somebody who's older than you. And yet, if they're really gifted, they're not going to keep you from bumping into everything.
No, I don't, absolutely.
Because they just know that there's some lessons that are learned in and through the experience, not just the telling. I want to read something from Eugene Peterson. And he writes this: "I called you to a life of purpose far beyond what you think yourself capable of living, and promised you." So I called you to a life. Jesus is calling you to a life of purpose far beyond what you think yourself capable of living, and promised you adequate strength to fulfill your destiny. I called you to a life of purpose far beyond what you think yourself capable of living, and I promised you an adequate strength to fulfill your destiny. So that's just another...
the eternal way to glory is what comes to my mind when you read that. Far beyond.
So if you were a man on the street and you were moving around Chapel Hill or Durham or Raleigh, and you put a microphone in front of people, I wonder what they would say if you asked them, "So what do you think your destiny is?"
Yeah. I thought you were going to say, "So what's the glory of your life?" It would be interesting to... But
I mean,
your destiny...
It's something that I think inspires us when we see it in some other story that we're watching or we're seeing unfold. And there's moments, it seems like it happens sometimes with sporting events or at awards. It was just and I don't mean to use this word tritely, but it just seemed like it was meant to be, that the story went that way because that was this team's day, or it was their the great upset. And so very, very interesting to see the what do we call them, the Cinderella stories, the underdogs, right? The where there's some kind of destiny. I mean, the whole college basketball and the NCAA tournament when they when they get to the end and they play all those highlights of just ecstasy and utter defeat, agony, right. So, yeah, Dallas Willard's another, I think, another important character to read and understand. This in his book Soul Keeping. Dallas Willard says, your eternal destiny is not cosmic retirement. It is to be a part of a tremendously creative project under imaginably splendid leadership on an inconceivably vast scale with ever-increasing cycles of fruitfulness and enjoyment. That is the prophetic vision which eye has not seen and ear has not heard. The most important thing in your life is not what you do, it's who you become.
Yeah, I like Willard.
Oh, I'll give these to Caleb. Maybe he can get those.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, dang, I don't want the underachieving life. I don't want the settled. I don't want to get by.
I settled for the settled for too long.
Yeah, there's an invitation to I think a journey of recovery and restoration that makes a lot more of this available and possible. And I think that's the invitation of the gospel, not insurance or saving you just from something, but it's really an invitation to something.
The kingdom is here, right?
And walking with Jesus in a way that he's going to show you why he created you, what you're capable of, and then entrust to you with power and authority a means to then live that way.
Yeah.
And it's not a perfect life, it's a full life, it's an abundant life. It's a life that affects and impacts the lives of others.
Yeah.
And I think the invitation to enter into that, I'm trying to think of the Proverbs 25:2. It's the glory of God to conceal a matter, and it's the glory of kings to seek it out. There has to come a time, some level of maturity, when you do want to know why you're here.
Yeah.
What age do you think? When is that?
Oh, I think we were born with it, to be honest. You know,
when do you think it really becomes
a focus?
Yeah, it becomes a concern.
Yeah. And it's hard to say, man.
That's why I'm asking.
But Rick Warren wrote a book called The Purpose-Driven Life that's sold 1 billion copies or whatever it is, because people want to know why they're here. So, you know, whether you're 20 or 80, when you decide that it's important to know that or pursue that question, I think it's in all of us.
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up. Didn't know you were going to do this, but I'm going to say, and it's to glorify God. And we do that by walking in our glory. That's how we glorify him. Do you know the scriptures say this, that he's going to give you crowns? And then what do we do with them? We lay him at his feet. We give him back. I mean, it's the exchange. The crowns of glory. and he's going to give them to us.
I think most of us have settled and go ahead, finish.
And then we get to give them back.
Right.
It's that. That's it. That's how I'd love to wrap it up.
Yeah. I think I'm just going to say
Go
this,
ahead. Yeah.
Even though you want to wrap up. I mean, I think, because I did it too, I think most of us were settling for, you know, a gold star or a pat on the back for how obedient we were or could be to God.
Yeah.
God doesn't want just obedience. Obedience is necessary.
Yeah. He has a rough parable of him giving talents to 3 guys, and the one hides
buried
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the one in trouble.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. So, I mean,
Yeah.
there's way more to that. What God wants more than obedience, you've said this before, I think is for us to be faithful.
Yeah.
Faithful to his promises, faithful to the processes he invites us into as human beings, hopefully struggling well.
Yeah.
And that's when we get those crowns of glory. Not when we are just, humble, obedient servants.
Yeah, the persevering and the compulsion to keep moving, right? And like Rocky says to his son, it's not how hard you hit, it's how hard you get hit, and you keep getting up.
Yeah.
You keep moving forward. You want
my readers?
No, I think I got it.
I
think I got it. There it is. The light's good. Thank you, Caleb. How do you see yourself? How do you see yourself? What voices are you believing? Who and what is blocking you from walking in the nobility of your true identity? You are the son of a good father, the apprentice to a glorious king, and the companion of the wisest and wildest guide who ever existed. You have a glory, and God wants to see it restored so he can turn you loose, because he knows that free men free others.
Yeah.
That's a great response. Yeah.
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 I mean, that's just true, man.
Just true.
Yeah.
That's just
absolutely
good.
Yeah. Yeah. I would strongly recommend, of course, pick up King Me and read that part of it.
That's the beginning.
Read the other parts first.
Beginning of part 3 in the glory of the King.
It is. And the other thing I would recommend, It's Your Call, Gary Barklow. He has a workbook that goes along with it. I feel like we've scratched the surface and maybe stirred some stuff up with these 2 episodes.
Yeah.
But like you said at the beginning of the first episode, we could do 10 episodes on glory and walk through the whole thing.
I think the thing I love about our advance weekends, this is really the subject.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Yes, some more healing and recovery and getting out from under the weight of lies and pain and the things the enemy has done to keep you from walking in sonship, walking in faithfulness, walking in belovedness,
freedom.
And it's in those things that's if you can, if you move on that path, what does the old woman say to Jean Valjean? Knock on that door. Mm-hmm. Have you knocked on that door? Mm-hmm. And so that is some of, and the path is different for you, for me, for others. But
sure.
But the destiny is the same. That you would know the love of God in such a way that you would be free. And in that freedom, we are more and more like Christ, and therefore able to offer the goodness that is entrusted to us to offer. So I hope that's helpful. I hope that's intriguing.
At least stirred some stuff up, right?
Yeah, there's some other podcasts. We actually had Gary on. Maybe you can throw that link, Caleb, onto bringing
Man, we were still down the hall when we recorded that
we were.
one.
Yeah, and bringing our trainer, guide, encourager, Gary Barklow, into the conversation about glory. But do we have anything else I'm missing? Announcements, stuff we're trying to cover? Okay.
Comment of the week, you mean?
Yep. And I know DFGs are starting to pop up.
Yeah, absolutely.
You want to talk about the DFG website?
Well, go to dfgsummit.com for all the info about what a DFG Men's Summit is and where they're coming up near you. Just under a month, I think, this episode airs, we're going to be in Xenia, Ohio.
Cincinnati,
which is near
Dayton.
Cincinnati, Dayton, yeah, for our first one. And so guys
Yeah.
are registering. It's not too late.
Yep.
So look for the registration link there and where other locations. We had a great conversation with some guys in Florida this morning, and, wonderfully, by the grace of God, they want to do it in January. So we get to
I thought
we
the
get to
same
go to
thing. I'm
Florida
like,
in
man,
January.
I
yeah.
like it.
Everybody on the team is going to want to go to that
That's
one.
right. That's
but-
right. We'll podcast from Florida, Caleb. We'll
That's
get
right.
it done. All right. So, hey,
But yeah.
thank you for joining us on the Exploring More podcast. Do the rate, review, and particularly, even more important than those things might be forwarding, sharing, inviting others to listen to what you're listening to, and then have a conversation about that. So we'll see you next time on the Exploring More podcast.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of Exploring More. The landing page for this podcast is zoe.org/podcast. That's ZOWEH.org/podcast, where you can find the show notes and various platforms to which we broadcast. You can also find us and the Life of More by visiting Zoe on YouVersion Bible app, Right Now Media, our Facebook page, and Zoe on Instagram and Twitter. Remember, with God there is always more, and you were made for more.